This is the Porsche Macan. For over 8 years, it's been the answer to the question, why would you want to buy a Porsche SUV? It's small, it's chunky, it's got good power, it's got all-wheel drive. It's a sports car. For 2022, Porsche is rolling the dice for one last time on the petrol Macan, because in 2023, there's an all-electric version coming. It's going to be sold alongside this car. So we've got new bits and pieces, some very mild visual tweaks, but there's some new stuff under the bonnet. Before we get talking about the 2022 Porsche Macan, can I ask you please, hit subscribe, hit the bell button. If you do that, every time there's a new video on the channel, you'll hear about it. Something fresh, twice a week on the Wheels channel. Now, we're going to talk about all the things we usually talk about with these cars. We're going to talk about how much it costs, what do you get, what's new, what's the warranty and servicing like, what's the safety like, and of course, how does it drive? Very important for a Porsche Macan. If there's anything I've missed in this video, it will be in my written report, which is down below in the description and will probably appear above my head somewhere during this video. Okay, I've told you enough things to do. Let's get cracking. It's the 2022 Macan. Can you tell? That's okay, I couldn't either. There's not a lot that's changed visually, but there are a few little things. This is the mid-spec Macan S. So you've got the entry-level Macan and the top-level GTS. But they've all got LED headlights with that really cool signature 4-point DRL in the LED headlight assembly. Very, very cool. You've got this cool 3D effect here, which is repeated on the Macan, but on the Macan S and GTS is slightly different. Here in the mid-spec, you get 20-inch wheels. These are actually optional 21s. You get 19s, which are bigger than before on the base model Macan, and you get 21s on the GTS. The profile is pretty much the same. I don't think a single thing has changed, and that's a good thing. I just think this actually does look like a Porsche from the side, and that's in a good way. It's also kind of a halfway house between a proper SUV hatchback and also that coupe roofline that a lot of companies like BMW, Mercedes and Audi are going for. It still looks pretty good. And around the back here, still pretty much the same as the 2019 facelift. You've got this awesome full width light bar. It looks so cool at night. It looks cool during the day. You can see this thing from miles away. I quite like this Porsche thing under here, under the light bar. I don't know, it just works really well. And if you're a bit nuts and you like taking photos of it at night, that red glow from the light bar makes it look really, really cool. Yeah, hardly anything's changed, but as I say, bit of a Porsche signature move, that. The entry-level Macan is just called Macan and starts at $84,800. The only one of the three powered by a 4-cylinder turbo. It comes with such nice things as LED headlights, 19-inch alloys, 3-zone climate control, keyless entry and start, a 10-speaker stereo powered by a 10.9-inch touchscreen and Apple CarPlay. You also get electric front seats, cruise control, leather, 3-zone climate control, sat-nav, metallic paint and plenty more besides, including a huge optional sunroof. Step up to the Macan S and you score the twin-turbo V6, 20-inch alloys, active suspension, 14-speaker Bose stereo and slightly different interior and exterior trim, and that's $105,800. The top step of the Macan podium is the GTS. It gets more power from the 2.9-litre twin-turbo V6, the driver memory package, 21-inch alloy wheels and an upgraded Porsche traction management system which prioritises power to the rear. It also scores some clever brakes with a tungsten carbide coating on the disc, which means a harder surface and apparently less brake dust. Most interesting is the switch to air suspension, which out of the box lowers the ride height by 10mm and opens up a bunch of engineering options. The GTS will set you back $129,800. The GTS Sport package swaps the alloys for different black ones, performance tyres from Pirelli, a new diff with torque vectoring, some styling changes inside and out, and a heated steering wheel, as well as liberal use of race techs. The Sport Chrono package, which delivers faster 0 to 100 km/h times, is available on the Macan and Macan S for $1,880 and is standard on the GTS. Since the 2019 facelift, not much has changed in here. In fact, not much has changed in here in 8 years. This though, this is a steering wheel from the 911 range. It's true, I can tell you that I drove a 911 last week and it had this steering wheel. It's very cool that you can say that. I mean, Porsche people really like their Porsche stuff and it's the kind of thing you want in your Porsche. You've still got the 3 dials here, big tacho in the middle, I really like that, and a digital screen here, which means that if you've got the nav running, you still get the nav here and here, so you can concentrate on other things here in the big central screen. That's still 10.9 inches and it's still very good. It's a very simple system, it's very easy to use, and it has wireless Apple CarPlay, but not wireless Android. There's a new console. That's kind of cool. Before, the Macan did kind of have a bit of a button explosion. So now you've just got this black panel. When the car's off, it's just black, and when you start it up, they all light up. They're not physical buttons apart from the climate control, so you are going to have to learn where things are, and they do need a bit of a prod to make work because they're all soft buttons, but it does look good and it really cleans the cabin up. A couple of dials there, one of them's volume. A little slot here, you can sort of put your phone in there. Sort of, yeah, that's all right. That's the big iPhone. 2 cup holders. Little bin here with 2 USB-C ports. That's very important, of course, because if you have the wrong cable, you're not getting any charge. You can also get wireless charging as an option. And the clock is now standard in all Macans, so people like that. I think analog clocks in cars are a bit naff, but there we are. There's one there. Also worth pointing out that on this steering wheel is the little Sport Chrono mode selector. You don't get that on the Macan as standard. There's just a sport button down there, whereas on the upper cars, or when you've got the Sport Chrono, you can Ferrari style, well, it's really Porsche style, isn't it, change the modes. Let's have a look in the back. Here in the back, it's pretty good. Look, it's not big. I'm not going to pretend it's big, but it is cozy. I was going to say snug, but it's cozy. Snug makes it sound like it's too tight. I'm sitting behind where I drive. I've got knee room. My feet are under the seat. I'm comfortable, and the seat is actually really nicely shaped, and the leather, well, it's very nice. In the GTS, you get this kind of textile suede like Alcantara, but I quite like this perforated leather in here. You're well looked after back here. You've got an armrest with 2 cup holders. You get your own air vents, and you get your own climate control zone, which is very generous. And down here, you've got 2 USB ports. The transmission tunnel, though, is huge. So sitting in the back, middle would not be a lot of fun, but really, this is a very comfortable 4-seater car, even for reasonable journeys. Yeah, it's nice. Oh, and you get bottle holders too. Can't forget the bottle holders. Right, we're at the boot now. We're on the final stretch for the interior. I love that that button is on the windscreen wiper. It just means it's not down here getting filthy or wet or whatever. I mean, it's still going to get dirty, but it's not going to be too gross with any luck. In the Macan base model, you get 488 litres, and it expands to about 1508. Here in the Macan S and in the GTS, you get slightly less. It's 468 litres or 1468 with the seats down. It's not a big deal, just might be worth knowing. Underneath, you get a space saver spare. The spec sheet says it's collapsible. Don't panic, it just means it goes down really small and there's a pump in there to build it up when you need it. No full-size spares in the range because they probably wouldn't fit under there. The Macan has a curiously short safety list with 8 airbags, ABS, stability and traction control, lane change assist and lane departure warning. You can add to that top tether restraints and 2 ISOFIX points, and that's your lot. Now, if you want AEB, you have to pay for it. You do get other stuff with it though. For $1,620, Porsche will fit this Dalek eye to the front of your Macan, which gives you forward AEB with pedestrian detection, and it's up to about 120 kilometers an hour. And you also get active cruise control, which, you know, is handy. But for over 85 grand, I would expect AEB to be standard, and I would also want reverse cross traffic alert, which you cannot get at all on this car. So, From 2022, the Macan has 2 engines, a 2-litre 4-cylinder and a 2.9-litre V6. The 3-litre is gone, and please stop asking about the diesel one. That one died almost 4 years ago. In the 2-litre, you get 195 kilowatts and 400 newton meters of torque. That's quite a lot. Here in the mid-spec S is the first appearance of the 2.9-litre twin-turbo V6. The old one was a 3-litre V6. Here it's got 280 kilowatts and 520 newton meters of torque. That seems like a lot. And in the Macan GTS, it has 324 kilowatts and 550 newton meters of torque. Both the 2.9s have more torque than before. It seemed like they had a lot, but now they have really a lot. Porsche offers a 3-year unlimited kilometre warranty, which is the same as Audi and BMW, and it's too short when most manufacturers, including Mercedes-Benz, offer 5 years. You need to service your Macan every 12 months or 15,000 kilometres, and there is no fixed or cap price servicing regime or even a prepaid service plan. Now, the most important bit of a Porsche is obviously going to be the driving experience. And I was very surprised to find that the 3 of them are quite different. I mean, they're going to be because they've got the different power and torque outputs, but they're quite different. So let's start with the base model, the Macan. So it's the 2-litre engine. Look, it's got good power and torque. Let's not argue about that. And it is still a mid 6-second car. It's like 6.5, and if you get the Sport Chrono package, it's 6.2. And that is good going. It's not sharp like the other two though. Like you'll still have plenty of fun in it. It moves around a lot on the tyres. The one I drove had Michelin Pilot Sport 4 tyres, and it doesn't quite have the turn-in of the S and the GTS, but it's very comfortable. It doesn't have anything, it's completely au naturel. There's no active damping, there's no air suspension, there's nothing, but it's quite good. And of course, on those 19s, you've got higher profile tyres, which is going to take some of the punishment on the potholes and stuff. And the roads I've driven today, they're rough and they're messy, and it was really quite happy. And of course, on top of all that, because it's December in Sydney in 2021, it was chucking it down with rain, and then not, and then the sun coming out. So the conditions were all really changeable. You know, all 3 cars I drove in those conditions. Obviously the all-wheel drive system makes that much simpler. But as you step up the range, obviously it gets quicker. It knocks about, you know, give or take a tenth, about half a second off the 0 to 100 time as you walk up the range. The middle of the range is this one. It's the Macan S. So it's got that 2.9 litre V6 twin turbo, which it didn't have before. This is quite a characterful engine. I really like this engine. It's in a couple of other cars around the traps in the Volkswagen group, and it really is a great engine. It spins so nicely. It spins almost as freely as the 2-litre 4-cylinder, which is such a smooth engine. You get a little bit of crackle and pop on the overrun. It's a bit more deep-chested than the 4-cylinder. Well, obviously it's a lot more deep-chested than the 4-cylinder. And it's quick. This is as quick as you would want, really, and that's how good it is. It also has the active damping, which means you get to flick between the modes, which brings up the stiffness, which brings up the responsiveness, and there are 3 settings in the suspension: normal, sport, sport plus, and you can set it all up yourself in individual as well using the drive mode select. This car is a lot of fun to drive. There's still a bit of body roll, but I'm saying that in a good way. Some sporty SUVs are just set up to corner flat, and it's an artificial feeling flat, and you don't get the feel you need and the communication you want from the road and from the suspension and from the tyres as you might want when you're going quickly. And these things are built to go quickly, as are plenty of other sporty compact SUVs. But it's such a lovely engine, and it just pulls and pulls and pulls, and it's terrific. And it really is the Goldilocks of the range in the sense that most of the time the ride is great, it's not very noisy, they're all actually very quiet, even at speed with these big tyres on them. This is running the optional 21s, and it's still fine. Hey, step up to the GTS, so you've got a lot more power, and you've got more torque than before. So it still has the 2.9, but it's turned up. And it really does go. But what I really like about the GTS is the addition of the air suspension. And I said before that that opens up a bunch of engineering options, and it does. It means that the car is pushed into the corners, it lowers its ride height when you switch into Sport Plus or Sport. Instead of just stiffening up the dampers when you go into Sport, you still get quite a fluid ride, which gives you more confidence when you are on the kinds of roads we're on today. And it really does go. The other thing to note, I guess, too, is as you work up the range, the brakes really do get better and better as you go. The GTS brakes have this PCBS, Porsche coated brake something or other. It's a tungsten carbide coating on the rotors that makes it heaps harder. So you still get that bite, you still get that performance, but you don't get the brake dust everywhere. They are terrific brakes. The brakes are bigger all through the range. That's one of the reasons the wheels are bigger on the base model, to get in some bigger brakes. But again, it's about that engineering cleverness, that engineering depth that you are getting in this type of car that you just ordinarily wouldn't expect. Even the brakes in the base model are terrific. They really do pull the car up. You know, that base model is fun to drive because it does move around a lot. So its limits are significantly lower than the S and the GTS. I mean, when you drive them back to back, you do see how much lower the limits are. I mean, they're still high for this kind of vehicle. So yeah, when you do step up into the S and the GTS, you're getting your money's worth, particularly on the S. So the engines all have the same transmission, the 7-speed PDK. It's a German compound word that's really hard to say convincingly. So basically it's a twin clutch. I like the Italian version of twin clutch, doppio frizione. It's very slick in this car. People are a bit leery about the PDK. They shouldn't be anymore. I think given it's throughout a whole bunch of different brands, it's now pretty damn good. And it handles the power and torque in these cars really well. What I love about it is just the way it bang, bang, bang. The gears are so slick and it almost feels like a seamless shift. It's so quick to change. And the paddles are really nice to use and they're real metal, which is nice. I'm really impressed by that. I'd be very interested to see what a manual one of these would be like, but you can't get one, so we won't find out. But yeah, it's the right type of transmission for this car, I think. I honestly think that. It does everything it needs to, doesn't hesitate, doesn't roll back on inclines, doesn't do any of that nonsense. It's very, very well calibrated. I don't think there's another SUV of this size that is as compliant and quick and fast. So, you know, there's the BMW X3, X4M, extremely hard suspension. I mean, rock hard, really not very comfortable. Audi doesn't really have, at the GTS level, it doesn't have the same level of performance because the SQ5 is diesel, and diesel and petrol don't have the higher powered engine and the more sporty vibe that the Macan has. It's still sporty, still not hanging around. And the Merc is, well, it's a giant spitting V8, and that goes the same for the Jaguar F-Pace. So the GTS really is something, and given the age of this car, like 8 years is a long time, and it's going to be a lot older than that when it does eventually pop off the tree. Porsche has just kept going on it, kept amping things up. Not crazy, but it's a comfortable car no matter which one you buy. It's comfortable to drive, but if you really want to get into it, any of them, they are great fun to drive, but very different. The 2-litre moves around a lot. This one, it's more planted. The ride can get a little bit chippy on rough surfaces because of the way the adjustable damping is set up. And then of course, the GTS just puts all of it together, but you are paying for it. But it's quite remarkable to think that a car that first came out in 2014 is still this competitive, and it'll be really interesting to see what happens in a couple of years when the electric one comes out, to see how many people go, nah, we're good, we're sticking with this. What don't I like about it? Well, we've talked about missing a couple of safety features or having to pay extra for them. The warranty's a bit short, but both of those things I can't see Porsche buyers being that bothered. But it's just stuff you need to know. I think the depth of engineering is very clear in this car, and the dropping of that 3-litre V6, you really are getting a properly sporty engine in this car. The 2-litre one, that, as I say, it wouldn't be the one I'd buy. I'd get the Macan S. It's got the right balance of the price, performance, equipment. Of course, you've got a ton of options to choose from. You've got 9 versions of the wheels you can choose. I mean, the list is long and expensive, but yeah, it's still really competitive. And while it's not as cheap as it used to be for a Porsche, you're still doing pretty well for the money, because in the end, Porsche fans 8 years ago, the badge was out of reach. And that might not be important to you, and it may not be important to me, but as a fan of any car company that has expensive cars, it's great that there's an option like this still in the market for you to get that badge on your driveway. Because for a lot of people, a 911, a Cayman, they're just out of reach. But to be able to get a Porsche in a way that means the whole family can enjoy it as well, if that's the kind of buyer you are, that's brilliant. The 2022 Porsche Macan, as I said, it's the last roll of the dice for the petrol Macan before the 2023 car comes along. This has to keep going beside that. What do I think? Well, I think it's really good. This car has always been good. I've always really enjoyed the V6 powered cars. The 2-litre 4-cylinder, it's a good car. It's not the one I'd have, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. And for people who just want that Porsche on the driveway, that's the car for them. I think the Macan S, that's the sweet spot of the range with the very powerful 2.9 V6. It hasn't got the air suspension and a couple other bits and pieces of the GTS, but is the GTS worth that much more? Obviously that's up to you, but I reckon I'd take the S. I can't think of a better mid-size SUV for the performance enthusiast, so yeah, the Macan is still a winner.